On a Saturday afternoon in the spring of 1971, Bruce Lee was walking home along Crenshaw Boulevard carrying a bag of groceries: milk, bread, eggs, ordinary things. He was wearing jeans, a jacket, sneakers. Nothing that drew attention, just a man walking back from the store. This was South Los Angeles. The neighborhood was predominantly black, had been for years. Bruce had moved here because the rent was manageable while he worked on building his school, building his reputation, building his life. Most of the neighbors were friendly. They'd wave hello, ask about kung fu, express curiosity about what he did. Some of the kids in the area wanted to learn. Bruce taught them sometimes, free lessons in the park, basic techniques, discipline, focus, respect. The kids responded well. The parents appreciated it. It kept the children occupied and gave them something to take seriously. But not everyone in the neighborhood was welcoming. To certain people, Bruce was simply an outsider. An Asian man in a black neighborhood, taking up space, using resources that some felt should belong exclusively to the community they'd built. Those opinions didn't always surface openly, but they were present. And on this particular Saturday afternoon, they would. Bruce turned the corner onto his street, 3 blocks from home. The sun was dropping toward the horizon, casting that long, warm, late afternoon light over everything. A gray primer Cadillac sat idling on the corner, music coming from inside. Deep bass, soul music. 3 men stood near the car, all black, all young, early 20s, dressed in the street fashion of the era. Bright colors, platform shoes, wide-brimmed hats. They were talking, passing a bottle, not doing anything that would draw official attention. But the energy surrounding them was different, predatory in a specific way, not looking for trouble exactly, but positioned to find it if it presented itself. Bruce kept walking. Eyes forward, body relaxed, not engaging but not making a performance of avoiding engagement either. The kind of walk that belongs to someone who knows who he is and has nothing to prove, which, in a neighborhood like this, in a situation like this, was its own kind of statement. One of the 3 men noticed him. He nudged the man next to him. They all turned. Something passed between them without words, a decision. A shared understanding, the kind of silent communication that develops between people who have spent years operating together. As Bruce approached, the 3 men spread out slightly, not in an overtly threatening way, but enough to make the sidewalk difficult to navigate without acknowledging them. Bruce slowed down and assessed. 3 men, all bigger than him, all younger, all carrying that particular street energy that can shift from casual to dangerous without much warning. But he had encountered situations like this before. Hong Kong, San Francisco, Oakland. The cities and the faces changed, the dynamic didn't. "Yo, hold up," said the tallest one, 6'2", lean and athletic, wearing a tank top. "You lost?" Bruce stopped, roughly 10 feet away. "No, just walking home." "Walking home? You live around here?" "Yeah, a few blocks over." The 3 men exchanged glances, amused looks. "Few blocks over," the tall one repeated, drawing it out. "Man, you sure about that?" "This ain't Chinatown." "I know where I am." "Do you, though?" The tall one stepped forward. "Because this is our neighborhood, our street. You don't exactly look like you belong here." Bruce kept his voice even. "I'm just passing through. No problems, no trouble." "No trouble? That's good. That's real good." The tall one grinned, not with warmth, but with the particular amusement of someone who has already decided how this is going to go. "What you got in that bag?" "Groceries." "Groceries." He turned slightly toward his friends, playing to them. "This Chinese dude bought groceries in our neighborhood, using our stores, taking our resources." Back to Bruce. "The store is public. Anyone can shop there." "Ain't nothing public, man. Everything belongs to somebody. This neighborhood belongs to us. You want to walk through here? That's a toll. That's the price of passage." Bruce understood the situation clearly now. A straightforward shakedown, hand over money or valuables, or things would become physical. It happened in neighborhoods like this, not only to outsiders, but to anyone who presented as an easy target. "I don't have much money," Bruce said, "just enough for what's in the bag." "Then give us the bag." "I need it. My family needs it." "Your family?" The tall one laughed. "You got a family living here, in this neighborhood? That's bold." His tone shifted, got more personal. "What kind of woman you got? Chinese? Japanese? One of them quiet types?" Bruce's jaw tightened, barely visible, but it happened. He kept his voice level. "My wife isn't part of this conversation." "Why not? I'm just curious. See, we don't see many Asian guys around here. When we do, they're usually running stores, liquor stores, corner shops, making money off our community and taking it back to their own neighborhoods. You one of those?" "No. I teach martial arts." All 3 men laughed. Genuine laughter, real amusement. "You serious? That kung fu stuff, like Bruce Lee on TV? I am Bruce Lee. The laughter stopped. The tall one stepped closer, studying Bruce's face with a different kind of attention now, recognition moving across his expression. Wait, you for real? You actually him? The Green Hornet guy? Yes. No shit, he turned to his friends. Yo, this is actually him, Bruce Lee, the Kung Fu man. Then, back to Bruce, with something that briefly resembled admiration. Man, I loved that show. You were cold, real cold. That little mask, those kicks, you looked dangerous. Thank you. But that was TV, right? That was choreography, stunt fighting. It wasn't real. Some of it was real. Some? Which part? The part where you jumped 10 feet or the part where you knocked out 5 guys with one kick? The brief starstruck feeling was already fading, the aggressive posture returning. See, that's the problem with you TV guys. You make people think you're tough, make people think you can really fight, but it's all fake, all camera tricks and cooperating stuntmen. Bruce didn't respond to that. He stood there, waiting, reading the situation, watching the angles. The grocery bag was getting heavy. He shifted it to his other arm. Put the bag down, the tall one said. Let me see something. See what? If you're really as fast as they say. Tana, if that kung fu holds up against real street fighters, not stuntmen, not actors. Real guys who've been fighting their whole lives. Come on, show us that 1-inch punch, the one everyone talks about. That's not a good idea. Why not? Because it doesn't work? Because it only works when people cooperate? The tall one had closed the distance now, standing inches from Bruce, deep inside his personal space, testing the limit. I think you're fake, man. I think all that kung fu is just dancing. It's just performance. I don't think you can actually fight. Bruce set the grocery bag down carefully on the sidewalk, out of the way. The other 2 men straightened up. Something was actually about to happen. You really want this? Bruce asked. I want to see if you're real, that's all. Okay, but when I show you, we're done. I pick up my groceries, I walk home, no more problems. Deal. Show me something real. Make me believe it. Bruce stood facing the tall man, about 5 feet between them. The afternoon sun was behind Bruce, casting his shadow forward, making him appear larger than his 5'7" frame would suggest. The other 2 had moved to the side, forming a loose triangle, spectators now, waiting to see what this TV man would do. Come at me, Bruce said, however you want. Come at you. Man, I'm not doing the work. You're the kung fu master. You come at me. Show me what you've got. Bruce stepped forward, slow and deliberate, closing the distance, 3 feet. And then 2 feet. Then, directly in front of the tall man, close enough to touch, his hand came up, open palm, and rested lightly against the tall man's chest. No pressure, just contact. What is this? The tall man looked down at the hand on his chest. You touching me? That's it? That's your kung fu? This is the 1-inch punch, like you asked. I need contact first, need to establish the distance, then I demonstrate. Man, just do it. Quit stalling. Bruce's face became completely still, empty of expression. His body relaxed, not the relaxation of someone who has given up, but the relaxation of a system about to move efficiently. His back foot pressed into the pavement, force generated at the ground, traveled up through his leg, through his hip, through his core, through his shoulder, into his arm, into his palm. The palm that was already resting, already positioned against the tall man's chest. 1 inch of space between contact and full expression of that force. And then it released. The sound was like a gunshot, sharp, loud, bouncing off the buildings on both sides of the street. The tall man's eyes went wide. His mouth opened and nothing came out. His entire body lifted, actually lifted off the ground, and traveled backward 4 feet, 5 feet, until his back connected hard with the side of the Cadillac. The car rocked. The side mirror shook. He slid down the door and ended up sitting on the pavement, stunned, unable to breathe. A hand pressed against his chest, trying to make sense of what his body had just experienced. The other 2 men were completely still. They had just watched their friend, who had been in street fights since he was 12 years old, who had never backed down, who had by their own understanding never truly lost, get launched backward by a single touch from this small man they were in the process of robbing. Their tough, experienced friend was sitting on the ground looking confused and helpless, and neither of them moved. Bruce stepped back, picked up the grocery bag, and straightened up. Like I said, some of it's real. The tall man was reaching for air, wheezing, his hand pressed hard against his chest. The pain wasn't at the surface, it was deep, internal, like something inside had been rearranged. One of the friends found his voice first. What did you do to him? Showed him what he asked to see. He'll be fine in a few minutes. Needs to catch his breath. Bruce started walking. I had to pass the car, past all three of them. One still on the ground, two standing useless. They weren't sure what to do. Their friend had been dropped and humiliated, but they had also just watched what this small man was capable of generating from a single touch, from a distance of 1 inch. If they pressed this, if they escalated, what would that look like? Bruce had gone about 10 steps when one of them called out, "Yo, hold up." He stopped and turned, ready for the situation to continue, or ready to defend himself if it came to that. But the man who had called out didn't look aggressive. He looked like someone who had just seen something that genuinely unsettled his understanding of the world. Can you teach that? What you just did? Can someone actually learn it? Bruce hadn't expected that question. He had expected threats, demands, retaliation, pride reasserting itself, not genuine curiosity, not a request. Yes, he said, anyone can learn it. Takes time, practice, a real understanding of how the body generates power. But it's learnable. How much time? Depends on the person. Some people get the basics in a few months. True mastery, that takes years, possibly decades. The tall man was standing now, leaning against the Cadillac, still pressing his chest with one hand, still working through the physical reality of what had happened to him. But he was listening. His eyes were clear and focused. "I want to learn," the friend said. If you're willing to teach." "Why?" "Because I've seen a lot of fights, street fights, real fights, brawls that ended badly, and I've never seen anything like what you just did. Not once. That was different from anything I know about fighting. That was something else." Bruce took a moment. These three men had just attempted to rob him, had blocked his path, threatened him, tried to take his groceries, made comments about his wife. And now one of them was standing here asking to be taught. Life produced strange turns. He studied all three of them, looking for what was real beneath the surface, reading for sincerity, for deception, for the kind of wounded pride that performs humility while planning something else. He found none of that. What he found was genuine interest, and something that looked very much like the particular humility that comes from being genuinely humbled, not by shame, but by encountering something that simply exceeded your prior understanding. The tall man spoke then, his voice still rough, still carrying the effort of recovering his breath. "He's serious. We both are. What you just did, it changed something. I thought I knew what real fighting was, thought street fighting was as real as it got. But what you just showed me, that's a different level entirely. I don't know what that was." "It's called fajing," Bruce said. "Explosive power generated from the whole body rather than the arm. What you felt was maybe 20% of what it can produce." The tall man touched his chest again, almost involuntarily. 20%. "If you want to understand it properly, I have a school. Chinatown, a few miles from here. Tuesday and Thursday nights, 7 o'clock. First session is free. After that, $20 a month. Come once, see if it's for you. If it is, we talk about regular training." $20 a month, one of the others said quietly. The three of them looked at each other. $20 was real money. It represented choices, resources that could go somewhere else. "We'll be there," the tall man said. "Tuesday night, 7 p.m. A pause. "You know who I am now. What's your name?" "I'm Marcus. This is Dion. And that's Terry." "Okay? Marcus, Dion, Terry. I'll see you Tuesday. But understand something before you come. You show up to learn, you're welcome. You show up to cause trouble, you leave. You come with respect. You get it back. That's the arrangement." "We understand." Bruce nodded, turned, and walked the rest of the way home. Nobody called out again. Nobody followed. He made it to his building, climbed the stairs, unlocked his door, and went inside. Linda was in the kitchen. She saw his face when he came in and understood immediately that something had happened. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I ran into some people. Had a conversation." "What kind of conversation?" Bruce set the groceries on the counter and told her everything. The men on the corner, the shakedown, the challenge, what he'd done, and what had come out of it afterward. Linda listened without interrupting. Her expression moved through several distinct states: fear, then anger, then relief, then something more complicated. "You could have been seriously hurt," she said when he finished. "3 men on the street. Anything could have happened." "I know. This time it worked out. What about when it's someone with a gun? Someone who doesn't care about demonstrations or respect, who just wants to hurt you? Then I deal with that, the same way I've always dealt with whatever comes." Linda was quiet. She knew this was who he was, knew that backing down, showing weakness, allowing people to threaten him or his family without response, that wasn't just a matter of pride. In the neighborhood where they lived, in the world as it actually operated, visible weakness was an invitation. Show it once, and you became a permanent target. Show strength, and people calculated the cost of challenging you against the potential benefit. That calculation mattered. It kept bad situations from becoming worse ones. "Do you think they'll actually come?" she asked. "To the school?" Maybe not. People say things when they're in the moment, when they're impressed or emotional. Then they go home. The feeling fades. Pride reasserts itself, embarrassment sets in, and they talk themselves out of it. It happens. But if they do come, then I teach them. Same techniques, same philosophy, same respect as anyone else who walks through that door. Tuesday came. 7 o'clock. The school above the restaurant in Chinatown had its usual 15 students, a regular cross-section of people, working adults, college students, a few who had been training for years. Bruce was running the warm-up when the door opened. Well, Marcus walked in, then Dion, then Terry. All three of them wearing gym clothes, looking both determined and uncertain. Bruce had not fully expected this. He had told Linda they might not come, and he had believed it when he said it. Pride was a powerful force. Embarrassment was a powerful force. The gap between saying you want to learn something and actually showing up to learn it was wide, and most people fell into it. But these three had not. His existing students noticed immediately, and these were different people from the usual demographic. Street-worn, rough around the edges, carrying themselves in ways that spoke of years spent in difficult environments. A few of the students exchanged glances. Bruce said nothing about it. "Find a spot," he told the three of them. "We're working on stance and foundation tonight." They joined the class. The unfamiliarity was evident. They didn't know the etiquette, the terminology, the basic starting positions. But they followed instructions, copied movements, and when they were confused, they asked. They didn't perform confidence they didn't have. They were there to learn something, and they understood that learning required admitting you didn't know. Marcus struggled the most. His body had years of different training built into it, not formal training, but the physical education of surviving difficult situations, of fighting when necessary, of learning through consequence. That background was real, and it was valuable, but it worked against him here. Every instinct told him to be aggressive, to force the technique, to drive through the movement with muscle. Bruce kept redirecting him. "Relax, stop pushing. Power comes from relaxation, not from tension." Marcus frowned. "That doesn't make sense. How do you get power out of being relaxed?" "Because tension restricts. It restricts your range of motion, your speed, your ability to coordinate the whole body. Try it both ways. Tense your arm and throw a punch. Now relax the arm and throw the same punch, which was faster." Marcus tried it. The difference was clear, even at his level. "Okay, I feel that. But when someone's actually coming at you, the instinct is to tense up, every time. How do you override something that automatic?" "You practice until relaxation becomes the automatic response. You repeat the movement so many times that your nervous system learns it as the default. Your body stops asking your mind for permission and just does it. That's what training is for." They went for 2 hours. By the end, all three were exhausted, sweating through their clothes, muscles they hadn't used in those ways making their presence known. But something in the quality of their movement had already begun to shift. Small adjustments, early signs, the first evidence of patterns changing. After class, as the other students filtered out, Marcus approached Bruce and stood with him for a moment. Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "That day on the street, the push, how much of your actual power was that?" Bruce considered giving an impressive answer, then decided against it. The truth was more instructive. "About 20%, enough to make the point clearly without genuinely injuring you." Marcus was quiet. His hand went almost unconsciously to the spot on his chest, which was still tender 4 days later. 20% did that to me." "Yes. What does 100% do?" "Broken ribs, internal bleeding, depending on exact placement and angle, possibly worse." "And you pulled it, even after what we tried to do to you out there, after the disrespect, you still measured it and pulled it." "Yes." "Why?" "Because you didn't need to be destroyed. You needed to be educated. Those are different objectives, and they require different responses." Marcus nodded slowly. He was working through something, processing it at a level below the immediate surface. "Thank you," he said, "for not really hurting me, for teaching me instead, for giving us the chance to be here." You earned the chance by showing up, by putting what happened that day aside and walking through the door anyway. That's not a small thing. Most people can't do that. They shook hands. Not a perfunctory handshake. Oh, but one that carried the weight of what had passed between them. Confrontation met with restraint, challenge met with instruction, and both men standing on the other side of it with something they hadn't had before. Marcus, Dion, and Terry kept coming, every Tuesday, every Thursday, week after week, month after month. Their technique developed, their understanding of the underlying principles deepened. Marcus's instinct to force and muscle his way through movements gradually gave way to something more refined, though the process was slow and required constant correction. Outside the school, they began holding their own informal sessions with younger people in their neighborhood. Free lessons, basic instruction, the same kind of thing Bruce had been doing in the park for years. They passed the practice forward without being asked to. Other men in the neighborhood noticed the change in them, not just the physical capability, but the way they carried themselves, the quality of their attention, the shift in how they engaged with the world around them. Some of those men mocked it, called it soft, called it selling out. Others got curious. Eventually, some of them came to the school. Within a year, roughly a third of Bruce's student body came from South Los Angeles, men from street backgrounds who were using the training as a structure, a discipline, a path toward something they couldn't have fully articulated but recognized when they encountered it. Bruce never discussed the incident that had started all of it. He didn't use it for promotion, didn't allow it to become a story he told about himself. Some things belonged to the people who had lived them, not to any broader audience. But Marcus told it often, to students, to the kids he taught, and to anyone who would listen and who he thought needed to hear it. Bruce Lee changed the direction of my life, he would say, not by beating me up, by showing me mercy when he had no obligation to. He could have broken bones. He could have left me on that street unable to move and been completely justified in doing so. He didn't. He measured what he used. He applied exactly enough to teach the lesson, and then he offered to keep teaching. That's what mastery actually is. It's not the power. It's the judgment to know what power is for and the restraint to use only what the situation requires. The story became part of the neighborhood's informal history. The day Bruce Lee got cornered on Crenshaw by three men who thought they had an easy target. The day a shakedown became a demonstration. The day a touch that traveled 1 inch sent a grown man backward into the side of a car. The day 3 lives changed direction, not because of violence, but because of the precise, controlled application of skill that made violence unnecessary. 3 seconds. From the moment Bruce's palm made contact to the moment the tall man's back hit the Cadillac. 3 seconds. 3 seconds that reordered something fundamental for all three of them. 3 seconds that made the argument for martial arts not through words or credentials or reputation, but through direct physical experience that couldn't be rationalized away. As a confrontation had been building toward real violence, 3 seconds converted it into education. That conversion didn't happen by accident. It happened because the person at the center of it had trained for decades toward exactly this kind of control, not the ability to destroy, but the ability to choose the precise level of response that served the actual purpose, to use enough and not more, to teach rather than dominate when teaching would serve better. Bruce walked that neighborhood for years after. He never had another problem on those streets. The word had moved through the community the way word always does, quietly, thoroughly, and with the particular authority that comes from people who witnessed something themselves or heard about it from someone who did. That's Bruce Lee. Leave him alone. Don't test him. He's not what you see on television, or rather, what you see on television is only part of it. The real part doesn't have a camera angle. Don't find out what it looks like. That reputation didn't rest on fear. It rested on something more durable, the recognized combination of genuine capability and evident restraint. A man who clearly could do serious damage and just as clearly preferred not to. A man who had no need to prove himself and therefore nothing driving him toward unnecessary confrontation. That combination, understood clearly, doesn't read as weakness. It reads as the most serious kind of strength. And on a Saturday afternoon in the spring of 1971, 3 men on Crenshaw Boulevard had encountered it directly and had been changed by it, not despite the fact that it was terrifying, but partly because of it. Because what they had seen in those 3 seconds was not just physical capability, it was judgment, precision, the decision to teach a man rather than break him, made in the fraction of a second it took to determine how much force to use. That decision was the real demonstration, not of kung fu, of character. And Marcus, Dayon, and Terry understood that, which is why they showed up on Tuesday night, and why they kept showing up after that, and why they spent the years that followed passing forward what they had learned to people who needed it the same way they once had.